Rushdown characters. Everyone either loves them or hates fighting against them. A Rushdown character is a character whose primary goal is to be aggressive, get in the opponent's face, and they're known for their crazy amounts of pressure and devastating combo potential. Think of characters like Cammy from Street Fighter or Chip from Guilty Gear. Their strengths are, in most cases, high mobility, fast attacks, and close range combat. Their main weakness are their often lack of any significant projectiles and tend to be poor defensively. There's plenty of Rushdown characters in Smash, and some of them have changed drastically from each game, so if you want to see the more iconic iterations of each Rushdown character in this video, you're in the right place. There is a middle ground. Sometimes a version of a character will start out as a Rushdown character in one game and then they become completely different the next game. Usually this doesn't tend to happen, but this happens because they want to breathe new life into a character. The point of what I'm trying to say is there is some clear gray areas, and some Rushdown characters you could consider as another similar archetype like Glass Cannon, where characters like Melee Jigglypuff and Smash 4 Smash Ultimate Mewtwo would normally fall into. The main difference between a Rushdown and Glass Cannon would be the fact that they have really high KO power, but their ability to be KO'd is just as fast. Usually this is done by making them really lightweight. The point of this video is to go over the classic examples of Rushdown characters and how they change for better or for worse. I did a video on heavyweights in Smash, so this is like a spiritual successor to that video, so make sure to check that one out as well. To start with this video, I want to show the most iconic examples of Rushdown characters in the whole series: Melee, Fox, and Falco. These two characters are what people would think about first when it comes to Rushdown. They are known for their blistering speed, their high amounts of aggression, having some of the best frame data in the game. More obviously because of their frame 1 shine, because this move is literally one of the fastest moves in the game and it has a hitbox, and it makes it great not only for reflected projectiles, but I know no one ever uses it for that, but that's what Sakurai would have intended. The inverse is probably one of the best tools in the whole series when it comes to comboing, edgeguarding, stalling in the air to aid in their own recovery, and even as a defensive tool to escape out of situations. You get it. Falco's is better at vertical pillar combos because this move hits upward, while Fox's hits away, so this benefits their ability to tech chase, or to edgeguard off stage because this move hits at an away angle. We could go further and further analyzing the two species, but this is the most iconic interpretation of these two characters because they were both top tiers for a long time, their shine being pretty much a meme in popular culture. It's kind of funny how both of these characters essentially split to completely different interpretations from Smash here on out. Fox to this day in Ultimate is still a Rushdown character, but his more melee specific tech is pretty much patched out in future Smash games, which is fine because the overall speed in games like Brawl would be toned down. Shines and the ability to jump out of the move would be removed in Brawl, and they also toned down this move coming out at frame 3, make it so the move comes out a bit later and less defining like it was in Melee. Fox's more aggressive tools would be toned down in some iterations of the character, and he would earn his place still being a Rushdown character and a premier example of the archetype. While Falco, actually for the first time ever, was the highest ranked spacey in Brawl, over Fox and Wolf. And this is a significantly different version of Falco compared to Melee Falco. As Brawl Falco, one of their goals was to add way more differences from the previous clone characters. So Falco has a significantly different moveset and animations in this game. Even his shine being completely different now, as Falco will kick his shine out. This does mean Falco lost his frame 1 shine from Melee, losing its intangibility as well, but this time it gives Falco a different option entirely. This version of Falco was still amazing despite being slightly different. Falco can shoot 2 lasers out of 1 short hop, making laser spam arguably stronger than the Melee version. Sure, Falco can't do pillar combos anymore, but his ability to camp is pretty much stronger in this game. This version of the character would be one of the top surviving Melee top tiers during the transition to Brawl, and most of them would be significantly nerfed. Some would argue that Brawl Falco isn't really a Rushdown character anymore, and this transition would continue in future Smash games where Falco would get heavily nerfed in his camping ability, and even his amazing down air would be toned down significantly. Down throw would lose its combo potential, laser would also be toned down, not surprising there, as it was super strong in Brawl. Falco would be the worst version of the character competitively for these reasons, as yes, he was more well-rounded in some ways, like further differentiating Falco from Fox and changing his aerials like forward air and up air, but they did sort of remove the aggressive edge the character was known for in Melee more specifically. In fact, Smash 4 Falco is the most nerfed character during the transition from Brawl to Smash 4. That's how big these changes were to him. Some people would say Falco going further would be considered a mix-up character, which is a completely different archetype from being one of the most well-known Rushdown characters previously in the past. Some people like the changes, as Falco would be given buffs in Smash Ultimate and the character is still viable in that game. In Smash Ultimate they would buff his laser, overall speed, along with giving him a stronger combo game. He's a solid character, just something completely different from the melee version of the character. Here is one of the earliest examples of a Rushdown character and how this character doubled down into being more of a Rushdown in future Smash games. And that's Pikachu. Pikachu could be described as one of the first ever Rushdown characters, even all the way back in Smash 64. Now this version of Pika was incredibly busted, yes, we all know it. Pikachu was the best character in that game, being well known for their easy combos, ability to KO at super early percents, strong recovery, you name it. Pikachu is very aggressive in this game. In Melee, Pikachu's KO power would still be strong in some areas, like having the strongest up smash when sweet spotted. Yes, stronger than Fox's. Still having an amazing recovery, however, it seems like they paid attention to the character's viability in Smash 64. This version of the character would be slightly weaker in some areas, like having awful range on Pikachu's aerials and grabs, specifically being known as Melee's poor man Fox, because Pikachu would be outclassed by a lot of the higher tiered characters who are still just better Rushdown characters in this game. Some people would say Pikachu was a little bit more of a mix-up character in some areas. That's how much the aggression was toned down in this game. In Brawl and Smash 4, Pikachu was still competitive and holding their own. In fact, they would actually buff Pikachu even further in future Smash games. Fun fact, Pikachu is actually one of the most consistently good characters in all of Smash. It's really interesting to see how Pikachu would double down even further in Smash Ultimate on the Rushdown archetype, where they would buff moves that were previously really terrible attacks, like down B, all of a sudden becoming super stylish and really strong in Smash Ultimate, buffing Pikachu's aerials even further, pretty much making every single aerial have some sort of use now. One of my favorites being down air, as it can meteor, which is just like, wow. Smash Ultimate is also one of the games where they did one of the craziest things I think I've ever seen a fighting game do to a character, and that is take a joke character, make them into a crazy Rushdown. Pichu in Melee was awful, and since every single character was returning in Smash Ultimate, that meant even Pichu would be receiving a lot of the same changes as Pikachu. In fact, you could argue that Pichu is even more of a Rushdown character than Pikachu is, because Pichu's recoil mechanic makes Pichu have to approach more often and be less reliant on Thunder Jolt. Go watch this video if you want to see a full video on how crazy Pichu's viability changed throughout Smash Ultimate, as making Pichu a Rushdown character essentially was taking a joke character and actually making them better than Pikachu. And this was when the game first came out, so this was a different time indeed. As time went on, Pichu would be significantly nerfed and lose a lot of these positives the character had early on, like for example making Pichu's hurt boxes larger and making the recoil deal more percent, really hurting Pichu's survivability. Nonetheless, both of these characters are premier Rushdowns in Smash Ultimate's meta. Although Pichu is worse than Pikachu again, at least Pichu is still viable and no longer a joke. Another premier example of Rushdown characters in Smash Ultimate is Roy and Chrom. Although it took a long time for Roy to get where he is right now, this is the highest placed version of Roy in any Smash game. And it's mainly because they finally figured out how to give an identity to this character. And Melee Roy, honestly and respectfully, no offense to the Melee Roy mains, he feels severely incomplete. If you play Roy in Ultimate and then go all the way back to Melee Roy, it's like, wow, I can't even believe this is the same character. We can blame it on the significant amount of crunch for sure, but I think it should be noted how big these changes would be for Roy in future Smash games. Roy would be absent in Brawl, and he wouldn't return until Smash 4 as a DLC character, and Roy wasn't that bad in Smash 4. In fact, people saw potential in the character being significantly better than the Melee version, but Roy failed to have a large success in Smash 4 because he still ironically had some of the same issues he had before being buffed, and that was a lack of range, poor recovery, terrible approach options, and this would be the last time Roy would be considered a low tier. What was so important about Roy in Smash Ultimate was they finally embraced an archetype for him by improving his range, improving tools like his double-edged sword, making it a great combo tool as the move comes out way faster, his aerials come out quicker, and actually has edge guarding capabilities, who would have thought. Roy in general just doubled down, pun intended, double-edged sword dance, okay, I get it, on what the character was honestly supposed to be all the way back in Melee, because the older versions of Roy were just way too slow and lacked significant amounts of range to be a proper Rushdown character. And of course, there's the introduction to another Rushdown character, Cloneception himself, Chrom. The interesting thing they did with Chrom was give Chrom a sword that is reminiscent to Lucina's, so it has no sour spots on their hitboxes, meaning Chrom can be more useful at any range because of his more balanced sword. Chrom might be slightly weaker here and there. Yes, he does have the worst recovery. For those who don't know, Chrom has an up special similar to Ike's where it could be a sacrificial KO tool. Does have niche situational uses here and there, although people are probably going to prefer Roy, as Roy is just gonna have the more consistent recovery. Despite being outclassed by his clone counterpart, Chrom is another example of a Rushdown character. Some would probably argue that Captain Falcon in Melee is more of a brawler. Nonetheless, he's one of the most aggressive characters in the game, known for his iconic stomp knee, and this version of Falcon, if he hits you, you can die. I always thought it was interesting how different the various versions of Captain Falcon really are, and they pulled back on some of his aggressive attributes, like giving him a significant amount of end lag in games like Brawl, where his iconic KO power and damage potential would be nerfed, but being traded with a better recovery, which in my opinion was not a good trade, as this made Captain Falcon a once iconic character to being a low tier. In fact, in the future they would make Captain Falcon sort of a mix-up character instead of a Rushdown character, where Captain Falcon is going to have to go for more openings in order to get an advantage, and think of it as a more laid-back version of the Melee iteration. Still a decent character nonetheless, just slightly different. Other Rushdown characters could be some iterations of Zero Suit Samus, after most notably the Brawl version lead into being a zoner due to the amount of projectiles and armor items that the character has. ZSS would lose these things in Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate, as the character would gain more Rushdown style moves, like her new up special KO move, and they heavily buffed the character's aerials and smash attacks and leaned into the character's speed. Terry Bogard is probably one of the most interesting Rushdown characters, as he's not only incredibly aggressive with his high amounts of damage output, but he has his own traditional fighter mechanic. This gives him the ability to close out stocks very quickly. A grab bag of a handful of other characters that could be considered Rushdown characters could be Smash Ultimate Sheik, Yoshi. Some would maybe even consider Joker a Rushdown character, even though he's maybe a blend of a couple other archetypes. It's interesting to see how some of the Rushdown characters are defined within each Smash Bros game. Some people are saying they're not at their high point as they used to be, but I still think there's a handful of good Rushdown characters even in Smash Ultimate. Yes, the Rushdown characters might not be the best in every single game, but they still have a place in the meta. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you guys want content early, there's always videos early available on Patreon and for channel members. Thank you guys for watching this video so much. Hopefully you guys are having a good day. Peace out and have a good one.